All right, a very good morning to you from sunny San Francisco for this very special webinar today, where we are introducing and talking about the Cisco Meraki network at Santa Clara County Fire Department. So my name's Simon Thompson. I'm the Cloud Networking Technical Evangelist here at Cisco Meraki. I'm very excited to be able to take you through this next hour. We'll have a good discussion about the installation and the experience that Santa Clara County Fire Department had with Meraki, and also give you a chance to have a look at the Cisco Meraki management dashboard, which is really one of the things that sets us apart from others in this industry. Let's have a look at the agenda for today. So we'll start off with an introduction to Meraki. We'd like to make sure you all understand who we are and how we got to where we are today. And we'll then go through a couple of questions around how Meraki actually operates. It's a little bit different to what you may be used to, so we'd like to take the opportunity to walk you through that. And then, obviously, we have the ability to take any questions that you may have as we do so. So we will also then go into the case study. We'll spend quite a bit of time on that, walking through the experience and the deployment out at Santa Clara County Fire Department. I have to be careful to say that correctly. And we'll have a pretty extensive demo where we'll have a look at what it's like to work with a Meraki network on a day-to-day basis. Then we'll wrap things up at the end with a look at the product families and a question and answer session. Now, over on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll find a tool that you can use to ask a question at any time during the next hour. So there's no need to wait for the Q&A section at the end. If anything pops into your mind, or if there's a question you'd like us to ask our fellow presenters, our guest presenters today, then please just play on that tool, and we'll try and get those questions answered for you as quickly as we can. I'm very happy to announce that for IT professionals who are joining us for the first time today, you'll qualify for a free Cisco Meraki 802.11n access point. And this comes together with a 3-year cloud management license. This is a fantastic opportunity for you to get your hands on some of our hardware, but even more importantly than that, and the real reason why we do this, is we know that it's very valuable to you to be able to try out new equipment in your own networks and in your own time. So we're very excited to be able to make this offer to you, and you can find some eligibility details for the offer on our website at meraki.cisco.com/free AP. And we just ask that you please give us a call to confirm your shipping information. Obviously, we want to make sure we get that access point sent to the correct address. You'll find details for how to reach out to us in the reminder email you received for joining today's webinar. Alternatively, if you'd like to have a look at our website, you will find contact information on there. So let's start things off with an introduction to Cisco Meraki. So what we offer to the marketplace is a complete cloud-managed networking solution, and it's really quite different to what you may have experienced in the past, as you're about to find out. So this encompasses everything that you need to build a local area network. So that's wireless, switching, security appliances, and MDM. And all of this is centrally managed via the cloud, in your case via the web browser. So very, very easy management. You don't need any special software. There is no command line interface. It's a really beautiful, intuitive GUI for you to work with. Now, we have very tight integration between our hardware, software, and cloud services, and that's because Meraki has developed absolutely everything that we sell directly in-house. So we have developed our own set of equipment and management tools that go along with that. And what we do is actually born out of a research project that our founders undertook whilst they were students at MIT. This is in the very early 2000s, and they had a project there they called RoofNet. If you're really interested, you can have a look on Google. You'll quickly find information about that. The project involved putting wireless access points on the rooftops of buildings in the Cambridge, Massachusetts area, and part of the project required us to be able to centrally manage those wireless access points so that we didn't actually have to go to physically connect to each one. Obviously it gets pretty cold up on the rooftops in that part of the world in wintertime, so a centrally managed platform works very well. At that time, most of the industry was using access points which required separate management, so not very convenient, and this really was quite a breakthrough. Nowadays, we take all this stuff for granted, so we think about centralized management with access points in particular using something like a wireless LAN controller. Well, with Meraki, there is no physical controller. All of those control elements that an access point requires and the other equipment that we sell, it's all managed on servers which we manage in our data centers dotted around North America and right around the world. So we have been extremely successful in this industry. We are actually the leaders in cloud managed networking. We really were the initiators of this line of business. And so we are now part of Cisco. We became acquired by Cisco in 2012. And as it says there, among Cisco's fastest growing portfolios, we really are contributing quite significantly to Cisco's bottom line at this point. And we are growing very rapidly. So triple-digit annual growth. We started in 2006. Very successful organization, and it's exciting to be a part of it. Even before that acquisition in 2012, we were already being recognized for innovation in this industry. So those of you who are familiar with the Gartner Magic Quadrant, before acquisition we were far over on the right-hand side of the Innovators Quadrant, which really makes a lot of sense because really what we've done is come along and disrupt the traditional way of managing a data network with this approach. We also won an award, I like this one, the InfoWorld Technology of the Year. This is one that's been previously awarded to products like the iPhone and the iPad, so we're in pretty good company there. You can see some of the customers we've been associated with in the past at the bottom of the screen there, and of course we have many more of these for all different types of organization. And so if you'd like to learn more, please go to our website. We've got a very good customer testimonial page with lots of interviews, case studies, and plenty of material to keep you happy. So that's at meraki.cisco.com/customers. And just to illustrate the point even further, in the particular sector that we're looking at today, really the public sector, we are looking at a lot of different organizations that we have done business with. We're very popular in any kind of organization which operates across multiple geographic locations. And that's really because of the ease with which we can manage multiple sites. You can make config changes once, and those changes can apply easily across multiple physical locations. That really does make it feel much, much easier as a network admin. It means you can get your job done much more quickly and efficiently. So why cloud networking? Why are we taking this different kind of approach? Well, really the world of IT has changed very significantly from the way it was previously. We used to have a very simple deterministic network environment with just 2 or 3 network applications to deal with, but nowadays, of course, we're all carrying around our smartphones and tablets, and all of these are adding to the load on the network. So even if it's just for software updates on those applications, we still need to be able to access network resources. So this is a much more dynamic environment that most networks have to deal with nowadays. So what we wanted to do is come up with a simple, centralized management approach which would enable us to keep an environment like that working smoothly, and of course keeping your more sensitive applications, things like voice and video streaming, ticking along very smoothly. So if we look at the architecture on the screen here, you can see on the left there, you log in as a network admin, and you're presented through a web browser with a graphical view of your network environment. And we have a fantastic use of application visibility with Meraki technology, enabling you to very quickly and easily see who is using your network resources and what network resources those are. And this makes it far easier to make decisions about how the network should be configured so that we never again have to hear those fateful words, the network's slow. Ever heard those before? Most of us have in this industry, so this is definitely designed to help you in that regard. So you are connecting actually directly to the cloud. You don't connect to the equipment, and you can see an example of an access point there in the center. That is also connected to the cloud servers. So everything is done via those servers in the cloud, but this is purely for control and management purposes. So your user data, the emails you send out, the web traffic, the voice over IP calls, that kind of thing, that all goes direct to wherever its destination is. We don't need to take that into the cloud. We wouldn't be able to scale our architecture in that way anyway. What we do instead is we simply use a persistent connection from each piece of Meraki hardware to the cloud, enabling us to send configuration changes down to the equipment, and in the other direction to monitor what's going on in the network, and that is to look at statistics about how much Facebook traffic have we got, how much voice traffic have we got, so that we can build up a valuable picture of what our network looks like. So just going into a little bit more detail on this, here we have a diagram on the left, and you'll notice the red line there labeled user traffic. This is just underlining that point again, that your traffic, the stuff you generate on your networks, does not pass through our cloud. And that's an important thing to stress. Those of you who are new to cloud approach to data networking may not be familiar with this, may assume that that is what happens, that it goes to the cloud. That's not the case at all, and I'm sure you can understand that would not be a very scalable architecture. With the approach that we take, with just that management data going to the cloud, we're typically running at about 1 to 1.5 kilobits per second per Meraki device, and that's enabling us to maintain a heartbeat and be able to send those config changes and retrieve monitoring information in the other direction. Now, with this architecture, we can operate very efficiently. So we can scale up to around 10,000 Meraki devices. That could be APs, switches, or security appliances in your location with no loss of performance whatsoever. And this is a really an impressive feat. It means that you can really have a single network deployment with common settings across multiple locations, all running at full speed. With this approach, we can also add new devices or sites literally in minutes. It's very easy for us to do this because we don't actually need to be physically connected to the hardware in order to be able to configure it. The configuration is done in an out-of-band form, which means that you are essentially making config changes to the master configs which sit on those servers up there in the cloud. And that config is then synced down to the Meraki hardware itself. So this means, for example, that you could, if you were doing a fast deployment, you could have equipment shipping out from a warehouse directly to wherever it's going to be deployed. You don't need to pre-stage it. You don't need to take it out of the box. Whilst it's on the truck, you can be busy configuring it in the dashboard because of this out-of-band management approach we take. And then as soon as the equipment arrives on site, you just need somebody smart enough to plug the thing in, get it connected to the internet, and then we can begin to pass that configuration down, and it will then operate with your config immediately. Now, another very important point to note, which may be on your mind if you are new to this this kind of model, is what happens to my local area network if I'm disconnected from the cloud? And that's a completely understandable question. What I will say is that because this is an out-of-band solution in this, as the diagram shows on the left there, if you're unlucky enough to be disconnected from the cloud, you will continue to serve a fully functioning local area network with your Meraki hardware. We only require the connection to the cloud for configuration changes and for monitoring of data on that network. So in other words, operating the network does not rely on the connection to the cloud. So as far as security is concerned, obviously we've built a very large business around this model, and in order to do so, we've been able to achieve some very important certifications in the various industries that we operate in. So for example, we are fully HIPAA compliant here in North America. We are also PCI compliant to level 1, which is the most stringent level of PCI compliance. And of course, we perform audits and penetration testing on our data centers to ensure their robustness. There's a great website at the bottom of this page here. I recommend you make a note of this one to have a look at later. It's got plenty of useful details which will help to secure your confidence in this approach. So that site is meraki.cisco.com/trust. Just to underline the point again, you can see here billions of smart devices, new applications all the time, and then at the same time we're trying to push through real-time applications, which I'm sure you know demand a certain level of quality of service so that you can maintain a good quality voice connection and unbroken video streams as well. And we're making more and more use of this rich media, so to be able to easily visualize your network and configure and change it through the dashboard, which I'll show you in the demo in a little while, really does make quite a difference. Okay, so at this point it's time to introduce our guest speakers for today from the Santa Clara County Fire Department. So I'd like to introduce Eric Prosser, who's the IT officer, and Dan, who's the network security infrastructure engineer. Gentlemen, if you'd like to just say a quick hello to everybody.
How's it going? Hello, everybody.
Great. Thank you very much for joining us today. I really do appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us. So let's actually get into the meat of this and have a look and see. Let's try and first of all understand what the fire department actually looks like. So if you'd like to walk us through this, just give us an indication of what the fire department looks like, scale, and so on, as it says on the slide here.
So Santa Clara County Fire Department actually covers the Silicon Valley. So, and we literally cover all of the area within, I mean, pretty much all your high-tech industry is in this area. The team that we have is made up of about 5 members currently. We have 18 sites, 15 fire stations, a 911 center, and a couple of headquarter buildings mixed in the group there. We're called the biggest little fire department in the country. Basically, it's one of those things where we are actually fairly small fire department compared to our peers in the state of California, if you will, but we represent quite a bit of influence in what we do in the fire industry. We have a cross section of folks from our organization that represent a lot of different aspects of communication, IT, and radios, and various different things throughout the state with a group called FireScope. And then what we were looking at doing with Meraki was we actually had a problem where, being a small group, we needed to do a couple of things. One, we needed to get some hardware to upgrade our current switches, and we needed something that we could grow with and take care of some solutions that we had on the table, such as deploying mobile devices. And so those are our two main thrusters kind of driving us down the Meraki path. But that's a little bit about Santa Clara County Fire.
Yeah, very nice. Would you say, how would you say the fire department is in terms of, is it fairly typical of what fire departments often look like in terms of operating across multiple locations, that kind of thing?
Oh, absolutely. I think there are small fire departments where they may have 1 station, 3 stations. Ours happens to be 15 actual stations. And then there's several hundred stations if you talk about Alameda County in the state of California. There's San Diego, LA, and San Francisco that are much larger as far as having the magnitude of the amount of fire departments that are around. But we actually have a very similar situation. If you just multiply the stations, then we're very much like them.
Cool. All right, thank you very much. So let's have a look at the network the way that it was previously. So it looks like previously you were working on a T1 network and you're moving to your own fiber network. So I guess that was that the original driver for starting to look at new infrastructure? You mentioned wanting to expand switches and so on. Maybe just walk us through the details on here.
Sure. In terms of what we wanted to, the services that we had versus what we wanted to be able to accomplish on our network, we had to migrate away from our current solution, and that was basically just copper T1s to all the stations, and there was no redundancy. So one of the first things that we did is we brought in fiber and we connected all of our stations and all of our headquarter buildings together. And the switching that we did, it's all layer 2. So we just
we connected all those together, and then basically, I mean, what it ended up doing was creating one big network for us to be able to manage. And so we moved away from that initial layout that we had to the fiber network. So our speed increased immensely, and it gave us a lot of flexibility to get things done very quickly on our network without having to go through a lot of steps to get things done. So it really enabled us quite well to be able to accomplish stuff quickly. So that was one of the drivers down that path that got us into a more robust network. Looking at the MDM side of things, we were looking at the opportunity to push out a lot of mobile devices to our apparatuses or fire trucks, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so as we looked at that opportunity, one of the big things that we were considering was the MDM solutions. And of course, you know, there are so many out there that you could get buried in MDM vendors. And so one of the things that we did was we looked at various different vendors. We had a recommendation from a peer fire department out of Sacramento, and they were in a Meraki solution, and they actually really liked the Meraki solution. So we went down the path of just doing a demo, but yet it was also free, the MDM portion of it, but we did get some demo equipment, put some in place, and really liked the easeability of managing the devices throughout the network.
Yeah, and the other thing is we actually, when we brought in our fiber, we had a variety of different vendors, you know, providing switching, providing routing, and even Wi-Fi. And it became difficult because we have such a small staff that you needed to like Cisco stuff. You need to know Barracuda and other Wi-Fi providers, and we were spending a lot of time configuring stuff that we really wanted to, we wanted to cut down on the amount of work that we had to do, and also have a good product that we could put out there.
Yeah, and it was just one of those things where the amount of overhead that you just spend as a person cost per hour, and I look at it from a labor standpoint, the amount of hours that you would spend using other products, this was so simple and easy to deploy that's, I mean, exactly why we went down this path. And no, we don't work for Meraki. But, so we looked at the APs, we rolled out, according to the slide, we rolled out in August, we put out several access points, whole bunch of switches, the security device, which is the MX100, using the systems manager for the MDM product piece of the Meraki side of things. And to be honest with you, and Dan's my network engineer, and I mean, it was pretty much up and running within a day, and we had everything rolling. And now we're just, it's very simple to do tweaks here and there as we go. So
yeah, that's one of the key points. When we first took the Meraki stuff and we put it in our environment, like I said, we already had other stuff in there, and that was probably the biggest hurdle, was transitioning without downtime to a full Meraki environment. And we made the decision to go all Meraki just literally because we tried one access point, and we're like, wow, this is really cool. You can actually see, and simple stuff like being able to see a guest and being able to go, okay, you know what, let's whitelist this person without having to go into a command line, or without having to to call your network engineer and have them do it. Now, someone besides Eric or I can actually go in with limited knowledge, limited ability, and be able to go, okay, yeah, you can, put this person, you now can get on the network, no problem, with this device at this location. It's great.
Yeah, it's a wonderful story, and I would say also fairly typical. Certainly, once you've gained your experience of networking, you understand how networks work. I had this experience myself back in the day. I was a network engineer and working on complex command line interfaces, and frankly, it's such a lot to remember that all you tend to do is just figure out what you need to do to get the job done, and then you move on. So this means you could miss out on all kinds of useful feedback from your network to really understand how well it's working. So,
right.
The other thing, sorry, go ahead.
The other thing too is that even though, like, Dan being my network engineer, he's a total propeller head and loves the command line, but yet you can get in the weeds if you want to on the Meraki devices, but you don't have to either. So that is a total advantage for us.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think the value really is in the valuable knowledge is really understanding how networks work, and the point is that we make it that much easier, I think, to actually get the configuration side of it done. But you still need that expertise to be able to interpret what you're seeing and to be able to set it up appropriately.
That is correct.
Interesting story. Sorry, did you want to say something else, Dan?
Yeah, the one quick thing I was going to touch on is because we work in a fire EMS environment, we get a lot of things that need to be done immediately, or it had to be done 15 minutes ago, and that's another advantage that the Meraki devices have. So, like, if we have someone that wants to, say, test a new product, and well, no, we got to make sure that it's on the network and all that kind of stuff, and I need it done right away. I mean, it just really makes it easy to be able to pop in there, create a different VLAN, even if it's for something that we're not going to end up using, but we can keep it separated from the rest of the network, and it's just very easy. And we can keep an eye on what someone's doing, someone who's, say, 30 miles away.
Yeah, I can imagine that the switch over, you said that you needed to switch things over quite quickly. That must be something that you guys are under a lot of pressure for, to do very fast, just because of the nature of your work.
Yeah, there is no downtime.
Yeah, we're 365.
Yeah, there's no scheduling of, hey, let's do it in the middle of the night, because everybody, I have fire stations that are rolling at whatever time in the morning.
I'm sure. We've had a question come in from one of our attendees just asking about your fiber that you're making use of. They're just curious to know whether how that fiber was provided, if that was a service provider thing, or if it's something which the county owns, something like that.
No, we own it.
We own it. It actually is provided by Comcast. I don't know if we can mention their name, but they actually are a provider here in the area, and they offered to really give us a great deal in laying out all the fiber at our station. So it really worked out well.
Great. So I guess this is like a dark fiber situation, so you can just put whatever you like on top of that to connect your locations together.
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, this is a great story. We have what we refer to inside Meraki as a full stack deployment here. So it's everything that we sell by the looks of things: APs, switches, security appliances, and the MDM as well. Let's move on. So talking about lighting up or enabling devices right across the county. Let's just maybe just take us through some of these steps about how the network is actually used in practice.
Yeah. Well, as far as different things that we're using for, like all the county devices, we have different things on our apparatuses that we will be deploying and have deployed. So we, in particular, we're a pretty much Apple shop here at Santa Clara County Fire, and so the deployment of iPads out into apparatuses or rigs or fire trucks, if you will, is one of the main things that we push out. Those connect up to Wi-Fi. We have heart monitors, which is mentioned in the slide. Those are devices that the folks use when they're out on EMS calls and so forth. Those all actually speak via Wi-Fi as well, and they connect when they drive into the station. They can connect up to the network at that point. They also connect on our rigs because they're rolling mobile devices, if you will, and they actually have Wi-Fi on the rigs as well. So there's that aspect as we kind of look at the devices that are out and about and moving around. The Meraki APs for us provide easy, I mean, Dan was mentioning earlier, it's super easy to be able to do something with a device that we see connected on a particular location. So if I see a device, I can actually whitelist it with literally a few mouse clicks and I'm done. And that particular device is good to go. And I don't need to worry about it anymore. I can also drill down and actually see what's going on with that device and what it's doing and isolate those devices. So that's kind of a nice thing.
Yeah, one of the cool things actually is that all of the switches have the Wireshark built in, and you can do it on a per port basis. So if you actually want to see, like, what IP is talking to another service or something, I mean, you can actually go in and do it right on the switch itself. You don't have to, have like Wireshark set up on a PC. I mean, we do, but just being able to do it on the switch is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Eric.
I was going to say, I was just going to move to the next bullet, but if you were going to comment on Dan.
Oh, I think I was just going to mention that that's definitely one of the very popular remote troubleshooting tools we have. And obviously, when you're working across multiple locations, the ability to be able to run something like a packet capture on a client that's on a remote location, that's pretty new. So we haven't really been able to do that in the past as network engineers. You normally need to be present in front of a switch so that you can plug a port mirror onto that, or plug a hub in so you can see all that traffic. So that's a really nice example of remote troubleshooting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other thing that, and I know this is actually a pretty simplistic thing, and I know it's one of your bullet points, which is broadcasting multiple SSIDs. So we kept it pretty simple here at County Fire, although the beauty of the technology that we have with Meraki is that we can do multiple types of SSIDs. We just do one internal one, which is for our County Fire wide network on our network, and then any external devices we push everybody to what we call the public network broadcasted at our locations. And so the benefit of the public one is we can actually monitor that, we can dial in that traffic, we can minimize the traffic. We can keep people from doing certain things, and
Yeah, which we get yelled at sometimes, but especially when it comes to rate limiting. But
yeah, so
I can imagine.
one of the other things about the Wi-Fi, being able to set up like a particular SSID at a single location, like when we have training and we want to say, okay, let's enable just a separate public network. Everybody can jump on it. You don't have to click, continue to internet or anything like that, and only have it run, say, between 0800 and 1700 hours, and say, okay, you can have internet access at this speed, and no, you can't download porn or anything like that. Super easy to do, and you can disable it and then re-enable it, literally in a single click.
Yeah,
So,
it's super easy to work with that stuff. What about radios? Do you use the 2.4 and 5 gigs?
yes,
I didn't hear what you said.
we use both 2.4 and 5 gig.
Yes. Yes, on our internal network, we'll say, the one which uses the Meraki radius authentication, which, by the way, thanks for making that easy. It's the easiest
You're welcome.
deployment I've ever done. We try to limit it to just the 5 gig channel, and because all of our devices are going to support it anyways, so it just makes it, it's a little bit cleaner signal and stuff.
Yeah, so that's a very popular area to play with to get best performance on Wi-Fi, certainly. I love the fact, by the way, that you're making use of the mobile app as well for client whitelisting. Do you want to just describe that app, what you're running it on, and what it's like to work with that?
You talking one that's on like the iPhone, the Meraki?
Yeah, that kind of thing.
The one thing that's actually really cool that I really, really like about it, now keep in mind, like I said, we work at a fire department, and we have firefighters and they're all very smart, but a lot of times when we say, don't plug in that wire into that port right there, well, they don't listen. But so one of the things that's built into the app is you can actually go to a remote location, take a picture, and put it on the, like, let's say a switch at a remote location. We can actually see, or we can show someone what the thing looks like. So if we say, okay, is there a yellow wire plugged into port 3? We send them a picture and say, okay, look at this right here. They'll match it up. So before we actually have to drive out there. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and that's something else which, I mean, it's a simple point, but it's definitely worth underlining. Is when we're talking about remote management, it really is possible to do more with the resources that you have, just because you don't have to get in the car or in your truck and head to a location just to do something as simple as plugging a cable in with these visual guides that you get.
Yeah, exactly. You can do a lot with the app. I mean, you can almost do everything with the app itself on an iPad or something, sitting by the pool, which I like to do, and, during the workday. And being able to make a config change, or to say, this port needs to be switched over to a different VLAN, or hey, we're adding a phone, so we need to pop in a voice VLAN for this port too, but not this one. So.
Okay. We've had another question come in from our audience around how the fire trucks are actually connected, sort of from a data perspective. Do they have any kind of like 4G modems or anything like that to enable connectivity?
Yeah, so one of our primary providers is Verizon in our particular area. We looked at several carriers and pretty much came back with 3 different carriers that covered 99% of our area. And we were already with Verizon, so we stayed with Verizon. We use devices in our rigs. They're called, they're called in-motion devices provided by Sierra Wireless. And they're basically mobile routers. And those mobile routers provide Wi-Fi within the actual apparatus itself, and it connects to the Verizon network, or it can actually have multiple carriers in it. So it can also connect to your AT&T, your T-Mobile, et cetera, et cetera. So you can light up all the cards you want. You can have that device connect to all those things, and as that rig drives around, it is a mobile hotspot. And then as they come into the station, that's when they connect up to the APs.
Okay. Yeah, and a related question, which I think I know the answer to, actually. I'm guessing that your radios you use are on totally different frequencies, so you don't get any interference or anything like that to worry about.
Oh, yeah.
Totally different.
Yeah. Okay, let's move things along. So easy management. we've talked about this a little bit already. Let's just maybe see if there are any points on here that we want to bring out. The switch refresh, obviously. You needed some PoE switches as well. So what were you powering? This is for the APs. Anything else?
Yeah, so I mean, basically this kind of covers what we were saying earlier. We were at a point where we needed to swap out some old switches anyway. We needed PoE, so we were looking at different devices as we were moving forward. We happened to come across the Meraki brand, and Cisco did recently purchase them, obviously, and they had the MDM solution. So as we were looking at all that, it actually just all fell into place for us. So that was a really nice feature for us as we were kind of diving into this. You know, as the bullet says, Meraki switches provided a quick, easy overview of the clients connected. I mean, that we already talked about that.
Yep.
Whitelisting, super easy. Security appliance, firewall, content filtering. I'll let Dan talk to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in Meraki, what we can do now is we actually, you know, have the MX dedicated to just providing, you know, the one-to-one NATing solution between our perimeter firewall and all our internal servers and stuff. So it's kind of nice to be able to have, you know, DMX just providing, you know, that kind of gateway between the two. And then we use we have a couple of layer 3 switches in there, you know, providing the actual routing tables and stuff. So it works just very nice. You know, very good performance too.
And you're making use of the Bonjour, presumably mostly for the Apple devices you're using.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things that, you know, like when you have the public Wi-Fi network, you can say, well, you know, let's let this person print to a particular printer or something like that. So if you want to use the Bonjour forwarding for that, same thing with like using an Apple TV. You know, you put the Apple TV on a public network, and then you let your, you know, corporate users connect to that and only that. You know, so it kind of keeps them nice and safe. So you're not, you know, putting any of your internal users at risk, you know, by putting them on the public network.
Right. And just to clarify for anybody who's not familiar with Bonjour forwarding, Bonjour is like a discovery protocol. If you do use any Apple devices, you'll no doubt have seen devices popping up in your Finder, and that's the protocol that's used. It's actually a standard called ZeroConf, and one challenge that you have with that standard is that it's layer 2 only. So I guess the reason why it's being used in this particular case is they've got layer 3 routing in place. So to forward the advertisements from one VLAN to another, you need a forwarder, and that's something which is built into various parts of our portfolio, in fact. Great. Okay. So keeping network devices in check. This is how you keep control of the environment you're working with, I guess. You've got 144 clients to keep an eye on. So what kind of tools are you most keen on using for doing that job?
Well, way more than 144 clients. Those are the ones that we try to deploy, and you know. But in terms of actual clients connected to the network, it's you can put a 0 after that, really.
Wow. Okay.
It's actually growing quite a bit, and that number's growing already. So, so a couple of things here. One, asset tracking. The nice thing about the APs that just came out with the Bluetooth technology involved in them, that actually we're looking at being able to track and monitor where assets are. So that's a nice thing. We're kind of testing that right now and seeing how that works.
Notified, like when like someone say, okay, this person with this device has entered the building or has left the building and gone into this building. It's kind of creepy, but it's kind of cool at the same time.
Big brother.
Yeah, we've heard that term once or twice before. It's you can spin it either way, I guess. Just for those who are not familiar with Systems Manager, it's our mobile device management solution, and it's a slightly different type of management. So rather than looking after the network infrastructure, what you're actually doing now is you're looking after the specific endpoints that you have deployed. So this may be laptop computers, it could be iPhones, Android devices, whatever. It enables you to gain some control over those devices. It's typically used by organizations who issue this kind of equipment to their staff, to their employees for use, and therefore it's reasonable then for some kind of lockdown to happen on those devices, make sure they're used appropriately. So it's slightly different to, for example, creating firewall rules in the network space.
Correct, and I know it talks on here about device tagging for app deployment, etc. So in that mobile device management realm, I mean, for those folks who have kids, a lot of the schools are moving into iPads or mobile devices, and those schools actually use the MDM infrastructure, whoever they're using, and they're pushing things out, and they can monitor what the kids do. And and my daughter was caught one time sending a message that she shouldn't have sent, and they knew about it, and they called her in the office, and she freaked out. But it is Big Brother. You can actually do all that kind of stuff on your systems. For us here at the fire department, it enables us to actually manage those devices remotely, and tons of them, without having to do a lot of one-off hand stroking on each of these devices. So we can group them. I can group my iPhones together. I can group my iPads and various different things. So iPads can be used for training. iPads can be used for an apparatus or a fire truck. iPads can be used for HR. iPads can be used for different types of things that we have deployed here at the fire department. And for us, we can build the apps within each of those different categories, if you will. And it's actually pretty nice.
Yeah, it's a nice scalpel approach as compared to like a blunt, every single device that we have has every single application that we could possibly want, which is what other solutions have provided. And so, like Eric was saying, the Meraki being able to say, okay, our fire prevention users, they're not going to care about, routing or that kind of stuff. So we're not going to put, any apps that they don't need on their devices. But at the same time, I mean, it's, they're getting all their stuff is staying up to date, and we can see if something is not out of date. So let's say that the device is not connected, and we know that it needs to be updated. Well, it'll actually tell us that. So, and I think that's one of the other keys.
Right, and I guess also the beauty of this is that you can manage these devices without having people bring them in to you to do it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. So it looks like, well, as it says with the title of the slide here, it looks like you're managing to do quite a lot with Meraki, which is really wonderful. I love hearing about these kind of very broad deployments like this, because they really do showcase what we do very, very effectively. I think what we'll do is we'll take a moment to move on and have a look at the demo now. So because time is moving on quite swiftly, it often flies when you're enjoying yourself. So we've got 15 minutes left, and I'm just going to give you about 5 minutes or so. We'll just have a quick look at the Meraki dashboard. So those who are attending who haven't seen it before, you can get an experience of what it's like to work with. So I'm going to log in here with my own account, and this is based around your email address. Notice it's a secure connection. We do also support two-factor authentication. And I'm just going to take us into the Meraki headquarters here in San Francisco. We'll have a look at that network. So I'm going to start off with a look at the client's view. And this is a really nice summary showing us what's going on in this network over the past period of time that you choose. So in this case, we're looking at all of the clients on our network over the past day. We can very easily narrow this down. So for example, I can just look at the access point clients for the past day, and so I've had 656 unique Wi-Fi client devices. You can see which ones are online and offline here. And because we have these quite long lists of many client devices, we've got some very powerful search tools built in to make your life easier. So for example, if I just wanted to look for the iPads, just type in iPad. I've had 23 of those on my network in the past day. And this works for operating systems as well. So I could type in Windows, and you can see we've had 114 of those. Notice that this is a dynamic view you're looking at here. So up here you can see in blue the total volume of traffic we've had on our Wi-Fi network in the past 24 hours. And then this yucky yellow color here is the results of the search that I've made. Up in the top right-hand corner we have what I call the applications pie chart. And today it's very noisy, lots of slices of the pie. So what I prefer to do is just tap on that. I get this nice drop down showing me the applications that are consuming my valuable bandwidth. And just as I was explaining in the preamble for today's session, it's typically the case that your voice and video is particularly demanding a lot of throughput on those kind of apps, and they require a good level of throughput. So let's imagine in your own environment you might not be happy about the volume of, what should we pick on today, Skype traffic that you're seeing. So all we have to do is just tap on the word Skype. And then we can see who is contributing to that Skype traffic. So we've got a very clear winner here with almost 2/3 of the Skype traffic. It's a MacBook Pro, so if I just tap on this, I'm going to get taken into a client view here so that I can learn more about this client device. So this one's not online right at this very moment, but was online very recently, so it looks like they've just gone out of range maybe. And you can see their last known location here on a map that we have uploaded. So we have integration with Google Maps, so you can use the regular map and satellite views, but you can also upload your own floor plans, and what you do is plot your APs onto that, and you can then easily triangulate the location of your client. So just hidden behind this AP here, you can just about make out a little blue dot. That's the last known location for this client device. And if they were connected right now, we'd be able to see their signal strength they had and what radio they were using, 2.4 or 5 gig. We can see their computer is capable of running either of those. So we should get a decent level of performance on this computer. That's 11AC, the latest Wi-Fi standard. And then we can see traffic used for this individual client over the past day. And again, another applications pie chart so that we can look at what this individual is doing with their network. And of course, we may want to take action about that. We mentioned this briefly in terms of whitelisting clients. But you can also go in and block clients from the network if you wish to. If they were really misbehaving, you could just send them a message here, CIT, send that out, and then this user will not be going any further on the network until they've had that block removed. Alternatively, you might want to think about a group policy. A group policy is just a set of rules and restrictions which determine the user's experience on the network. So we can build up multiple ones of these. We've got one here, as you can see, BitTorrent and gaming. I like this one here, bandwidth abuser. So we plonk Raphael into the bandwidth abuser category. He's then going to get a very different kind of experience. Maybe we could use that to book something like Skype. Let's just show you how easy it is to build those. Very straightforward, even if you've never done it before. So we'll create a new one, and I'll just call this group policy test. Now what I'm showing you on this screen is building a group policy. So this is going to apply to a subset of your total users. It is possible to make all of these settings that we've got on this page at what we call the global level, where it will impact absolutely everybody. So I'm just going to do it for a subset of users, and this subset could be individual Active Directory users, for example. It could be individual device types, so Android or iPhone could have a different kind of experience. You can also do it by group, so you could say the people who work at headquarters at the fire department get a certain experience, and then people who are out on the fire trucks, they get a different experience. So this is very easy to do, and as we mentioned, there's also the ability to create scheduling. So you can have these policies just apply at a certain time of the day. Really easy to do with these templates. I can just drag these times around if there's a need to tweak it. And then down here I get to play with the kind of settings and restrictions seen on the network. So the ones I usually like to show are the firewalls and the traffic shaping. I'm sure many of you who've built firewalls in the past will be familiar with the ACL approach, access control lists. This is your traditional firewall, which is great if you know your IP addresses and ports and they're fairly static. That doesn't help us quite so much against activity out on the internet, because IP addresses and ports do change regularly out online. So what we generally do there is use a layer 7 firewall. This means an application-aware firewall understands application types, looks at patterns of traffic, and can identify that. Because as all traffic passes through the Meraki platforms, we're able to do deep packet inspection on those to identify the traffic types. That's what enables us to show you the view that you looked at just a moment ago. So for example, I could pick a category like social web and photo sharing, and if I wanted to, I could block all of those applications in that list for users who are in this policy group, or I could just go and pick on an individual service like Facebook. An alternative approach to blocking would be using something like traffic shaping. So great example here would be something like software and antivirus updates. So those of you who are Apple shops, just like the fire department we're talking to today, you'll know that when new versions of iOS come out, or Mac OS 10, these can be heavy days for the network because everybody's trying to download these new versions. So they're important because they may contain sort of important security updates, but we want to make sure that we're not upsetting our our more sensitive applications like the voice and video streaming I mentioned earlier. So we can just move this slider up and down here. I can say I'm going to allow these applications to function on my network, but I'm only going to give them 2 megs per second of bandwidth in total. So I think probably given the time we have available, it's probably best if we move on, get the slides finished, and just wrap up with a few questions. Obviously, we have plenty of these webinars, so if you'd like to see a little bit more by the way of demo, do please sign up for another one of those. We run multiple of them every single week. So our portfolio, as we've learned today, does encompass all of the products you need really to build a local area network. So quite a comprehensive range, and in each family you've got a whole bunch of different products to choose from. So for example, the switches, we have 14 different models of switches, so it really is a very flexible portfolio. We do like to provide evaluations and pricing. That's why we're giving you the free AP for joining us today, and also why we have free evaluations for all of our hardware, because we know you need time to try it out in your own environment. So we send out brand new hardware. You get supported by special dedicated members of our support team who look after our trial customers to make sure you have a great experience. If you choose not to keep the hardware, we'll pay for it to be shipped back. So it really is a true no cost to you, risk-free opportunity. So do take advantage of that if you like what you've seen today. Okay, so we've reached the end of the presentation. What I'd like to do now is just take a couple more minutes before we wrap things up, just to have a look at other questions that have come in. So if you haven't asked a question yet and you're interested in doing so, please take the opportunity to do so right now. Let me have a look and see what we've got here. So I've got a question here about changelog in the dashboard. So there isn't actually a changelog which shows when you make a config change. What you're going to obviously do is have a record in real time of what the configuration looks like. If you are lucky enough to lose connectivity to one of those devices, it's not going to lose any config changes that you make. They will simply be synchronized down to the device afterwards. From a troubleshooting perspective, we do have an event log built into the Meraki dashboard. There's also the ability to output more detail to a syslog server, so you can really go in and do deep troubleshooting in that particular way. Right, let's have a look here. Other questions? So a question about whether we can integrate Meraki equipment with other network vendors, including the traditional Cisco equipment. The answer to that question is absolutely yes. I mean, obviously, if you're integrating with wireless, you need to be a little bit careful because you've got to think about interference and potential overlaps there. They are managed in a different way, so that's the one thing to be aware of there. But Meraki is very good at adhering to network standards, so we interoperate very nicely with other vendors' equipment. Gentlemen, I don't know, are you using any other vendors' equipment in your own networks that you interoperate with?
At first we were, and I mean, you can get it to work, but a lot of the advantages you have with having a single vendor shop, you know, you're not going to get. I think one of the advantages that we have as being a smaller group is that we're able to quickly make those changes and put them into place. But yes, I mean, they do. We had a different vendor for wireless. We had even for switching.
We had a couple of different vendors.
Yeah.
Right, okay. That's good to know. So we have a question here about whether the Meraki cloud platform can actually be run in-house. So it's not designed to operate in that way. This is what we call a public cloud solution. So the particular questioner is asking about ocean-going vessels. We actually have customers who are using ocean-going, they're using Meraki on ocean-going vessels, and when they're disconnected because obviously they're going up and down in the sea, they don't have a great connection to the internet, they'll obviously still be able to provide comprehensive Wi-Fi coverage across the ship, and all the information about the traffic use that we looked at in the demonstration there, that actually gets buffered. So if the device is offline, unable to reach the cloud, it'll just buffer that up until it's able to reconnect again. So hopefully that clarifies on your question there. A question here about whether we can hook up the Wi-Fi to a Verizon DSL router. Absolutely, you can do that. As I said, interoperability is a great story. I myself are using a a Comcast cable modem at home, we just plug Meraki directly into that. So the APs and also other products in our portfolio, they have their own DHCP servers built in. They can create their own network behind that. So really all you need is that internet connection and you're in business. Okay, just scanning through the rest of the questions here. So a question here about management traffic. I mean, it really is a very small amount of traffic we're talking about. I mentioned the 1 to 1.5 kilobits per second. That enables us to send the traffic statistics to the cloud. The only time we exceed that kind of bandwidth is if we're doing a firmware update. And one of the nice things with the Meraki platform is that you don't need to worry about going and manually pulling down firmware to install onto your network infrastructure anymore. You simply determine a time when it's convenient for you to do that, and then you can we will actually push that firmware update out to the equipment. So it's a nice zero-touch option for you there. Okay, we've just about reached the top of the hour now, so I think it's time to start wrapping things up. Eric and Dan, I'd like to thank you very much indeed for joining us today. I don't know if you have any closing remarks at all before we wrap things up.
No, we're good.
All right, happy customers. That's what we love here. So I'd like to just thank everybody for attending today. We do appreciate your time and attention. There's plenty of material being thrown at you in the past hour, so thanks very much for your focus. As you exit the webinar, we'll just ask you a couple of survey questions, and I'd be really grateful if you could just spend a moment answering those for us. They do help us to ensure that these webinars are useful, valuable in the future for future attendees. So from those of us here in the room, and thank you again to our guests, we'd like to wish you all a very enjoyable rest of your day, and we look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.
Good. All right, now what do we get?